You're listening to 17 Carat K-Pop. For more about this show and my other show Enthusiasts, plus to get the latest interviews, K-pop news, album reviews, and so much more, subscribe to the show's free newsletter at 17caratkpop.substack.com. Enjoy the show! Hello everybody! Welcome back to 17 Carat K-Pop. So many headlines to get to, both K-pop specific and just about the world of music, K-culture, etc. So I've tried to categorize the past month of news under 10 main categories in a random order. So let's just dive right in. In number 1, the Cannes Film Fest. In general, the looks were served at Cannes, but also especially for Jennie. She looked really beautiful in her black and white outfits this year for her Cannes debut. For her role in The Idol, I'm not going to give a take on the show because enough said. I confirm the reviews that I've seen, and they framed it better than me. But if you do want to know about the turmoil on set, in my March headline roundup episode, I did go into that reporting. I do think there are plenty of ways to support Jennie without streaming the show, so I'm not sure you should, but I'm sure Jennie will have that it factor that gets her future acting roles. And for her sake, I hope she gets them. Hopefully more starring roles, more of a big personality to her characters, more speaking, more Jennie period. Anyway, it was a big headline moment to celebrate other K-pop stars at Cannes. BB was there to promote the movie Hwaran. Crystal Jun was there to promote her movie Cobweb. aespa were there as the first K-pop group to ever attend. It was part of their ambassadorship with Chopard that sponsored their trip. Big brand names continue to really be seamlessly matching up with K-pop stars. I mean, Hyunjin from Stray Kids was posing with Donatella Versace herself and Dua Lipa, her muse. So, hello, iconic. Plus V from BTS and Lisa from BLACKPINK were spotted, together both repping Celine, the fashion brand. So the A-list K-pop was in full swing. Cannes also helped bring focus to the world of Korean cinema in general, and there have been some interesting developments there lately, which is topic 2. Based on both Cannes-specific and just other coverage I've been reading, it seems like all eyes, if you're wanting to focus on K-cinema, are towards places like Dexter Studios, virtual effects-focused companies. Did you know, actually, the main house in Parasite is a first-floor house? Like IRL, just one floor. They added the second floor with virtual effects, but the physical filming location, one-story house. Roughly 500 different special effects shots had to be used. Even the nearby streets in that movie, by that house, were 3D, digitally integrated into the physical world. Dexter Studios' CEO, Kang Jon-ik, actually started working in ads at the time computer graphics were first really taking off in South Korea back in the 90s. Then he pivoted to his film focus, set up his own studio, and then he worked on The Seoul Guardians in 98, which is dubbed the very first Korean film to actively use computer graphics. He set up his own studio, just to clarify, that's different than Dexter, which he joined in 2011. Dexter Studios was founded by Kim Yeon-hwa. He worked on the very first South Korean film to be shot in 3D completely. That one was Mr. Go from 2013. That's a fun trivia fact. The first South Korean 3D-only movie that was filmed fully with 3D shots, Mr. Go, from 10 years ago. About a gorilla who plays baseball. It's a whole thing. Would love a crossover with Twilight, but I digress. If you know, you know. In 2010, 10% of VFX special effect work requests for South Korea to be recruited, 10% came from overseas. So 10% of requests for using their tech and their partnership, 10% came from outside of South Korea. Then 56% by 2017. So yeah, well over 50% of their requests to team up now are from overseas counterparts. Some super hyped up companies who really love this company and similar ones, LG and Samsung, who have implemented their LED screens into that filming process. Plus CJE&M, South Korea Telecom. Currently, actually in South Korea, there is no current plan to change this, but some want them to change this. There's a 10% tax return incentive, so movie studios may want to change that, but we won't get too much into the weeds. Other South Korean studios worth keeping your eyes on, and just noting for history's sake. Gulliver Studios used AI to de-age this character, both their picture and their voice. And they didn't even need any special physical equipment to aid the project on set. So it was entirely a virtual de-aging process. Gulliver Studio is the Emmy-winning company who has done special effects for Squid Game, and has since naturally seen an increase in global partnership requests. There's also Westworld, the company behind Black Knight, a new Netflix show. Go stream Tableau's OST from it. Westworld was able to employ and pay 10 employees in 2018. Now, 170. They're also currently filming a movie in virtual production, all virtual, called Hope. Nice choice. So Gulliver, Dexter, Westworld, then there's Zon, or XON Studio, who say they aspire to one day simultaneously film in two places at once, with a shared LED screen. Their LED wall virtual studio projects really kicked into high gear due to the pandemic, social distancing and stuff, and their services have stayed in high demand ever since. Now, one company that has drawn ire is Scanline. They worked on the Batman, Godzilla. They drew ire from local South Korean companies because back in 2019, they signed on with the Seoul government. So the Seoul government agreed to basically provide financial material support to a once underdog company. The unintended consequence of this new level of interest in K-cinema is the way it increases the proportion of offers they may take that are lucrative and overseas, decreasing the proportion of attention and money going to local startups, the little guys. Big name international partnerships, more tempting offers now are available, so little indie production centers in South Korea not exactly riding as high on the Hallyu wave. But of course, many see many more pros than cons in the K-cinema boost of popularity, because first of all, international cooperation allows not just the sharing of ideas and tech usage and soft power around the world, all that geopolitical stuff, but it also helps with some travel budget and time zone related concerns. Virtual studios you can open up 24/7, saving money and travel. Others are just really impressed because K-movies have always used a smaller budget compared to just Hollywood productions, really small budget. In fact, that Dexter CEO's estimation is, quote, if the total production cost is over $15 million, it's considered a blockbuster here. Compare that to Avatar 2, which is almost $400 million. The size of Korean film is still only about 10% of Hollywood production, unquote. But that has actually, ironically, made their content more impressive to some people because they see, wow, on such a cheaper budget, they're releasing popular and high-quality stuff. It's also been really interesting to see the growth of the media focus of the biggest media conglomerate, Juon Group, in South Korea, and Jun In-han's oversight. So his family company, Junon Group, owns and operates so many smaller media companies, including the ones with the most K-dramas that get sent to Netflix. But actually, Juon Group and their offering used to be much more about small art house projects, not big budget hits. But they have been working on some US-inspired, Hollywood-inspired strategies, like acquiring companies like Whip, which was actually owned by CAA, one of the big entertainment companies in the US, based in the US. They also have been borrowing from the playbook of Bob Iger and other big leaders like Disney, IP expansion. So, Too Long Didn't Listen version, the Junon Group continues to dominate, be almost a Disney-level force in South Korean media, and has been taking from the Disney playbook with buying tons of IP, acquiring other companies, which include Whip, which was owned by a US company. The leader of this group estimates about 170 to 180 K-dramas are produced every year in Korea, and his company produced 20%-ish of last year's stock. He also estimates that if you exclude indies, 70 to 80 commercial Korean films are released every year. And the companies his conglomeration owns produce roughly 20% of those as well. They naturally became Disney Plus's first Korean partner. In a recent interview, which I'll link to on my site, he gave a really interesting assessment of the movie-making world. Quote, "If we're taking 20% of the market, our key success factors are fully aligned with the size and health of the Korean entertainment industry as a whole. In order for our slice to become bigger, we have to grow the whole market, basically. So I feel deeply obligated to support new young directors working in film. Because if we just reap the rewards of established talent and force all the emerging directors to work in series or YouTube, where is that going to leave the professional Korean film business in 10 years?" Unquote. Kind of refreshing, honestly, to hear from a CEO. We need to feel obligated to look out for the little guys, not just our own stake in this. Our stake affects the other people's stake and just our global reputation. So they do not plan to become just one big monopoly. It sounds like they actually really hope to share the wealth that came with renewed interest in K-cinema. They say they do have to have, though, those big budget tentpoles every year to keep up demand and interest. They actually also say their primary focus outside of Korea right now is in Japan, and partly maybe because they still have a culture that prioritizes renting DVDs and physical copies of media. So you can make more money maybe with an extra revenue source there. His company is exclusively funding an upcoming movie with Alicia Vikander, saying, quote, "It's almost impossible to even break even from the Korean market alone. It's a very big bet for us. We're having discussions with different studios about bringing on an international partner," unquote. Other interesting takeaways from his recent interview. He said the average budget for a Korean film might be about $5 million, and some dramas' budgets, not just in Korea, are $1 million an episode. They've ballooned. Quote, "We produced Narco Saints for Netflix, and that was $3.5 million per episode," unquote. But another interesting, unrelated somewhat takeaway, he expressed cautious optimism that someday they will return to at least 90% of what box office revenue was pre-pandemic, despite streaming making the box office a bit harder to achieve feats in. He thinks moviegoing will return to about 90% of what it used to be. Lots more. Again, I will link to the full interview on my site. The bottom line is that Cannes and beyond have really showcased international cinema more than ever in terms of just cooperation on special effects and trying to get investments and interest for the long term in different countries. Let's move on to topic 3. There have been some big issues with tours lately. First, we have to talk about the much aggrieved planning for Elast tour. Boyband Elast, they were having the Thrill tour, and it certainly was a thrill ride, I guess you could say, in the worst way. Very twisty story. Show after show on Elast US tour was, I think it's pretty safe to say, objectively a mess. In LA, the show started 3 hours late, and some fans used the word scammed to describe how they felt, saying they were kicked out of the venue before they got the merch they had paid for. They also say post-show events like the high touch and meet and greet were canceled last minute. The ultimate issue with shows like that seem to be the venue choices. And it's important to remember, Elast company, E! Entertainment, has been super nice. So trying to get in touch with disgruntled fans, make up for this, apologize, and really have tried to figure out what's going wrong. So the issue is really with the tour manager, not the boys' company, but MCE, the tour organizer, who was not organized. But yeah, communication was not there, and the venues they booked were just not on the same page, not formatted, ready for K-pop content. K-pop artists do tend to go to, at least when they come to Chicago, the same venues again and again. Lots of K-pop, same places. Not just because maybe there's a deal between companies, but also just because if you do have a standing relationship, it doesn't have to be a formal deal. It makes sense to just keep going there because you know your kind of show logistically fits with the venue's formation. But these venues were just not suitable for K-pop. And what seemed to get the most backlash was the show in Atlanta because that flat out was canceled. They had all the fan side events, but not the actual concert itself, the performances. That venue was a wedding chapel with a very narrow stage and a bunch of folding chairs. So social media video from the Atlanta show looks, I don't even know what it looks like, but it does not look like a concert. More like a PTA meeting. It's very strange. And what's odd is that as the show was going to start, someone came out on stage saying, "We have to cancel due to safety concerns because the stage is too small." Like, they can't spread out and do their group dances. This stage will fall. It's too unsturdy, too narrow. This led to an uproar, but still they canceled the show. And the guys did come out, and like I said before, still did the meet and greet, but wow. I have a couple questions about that one. First of all, why couldn't they test this earlier? Like, why weren't they able to figure out in sound check or, I don't know, something? Some pre-show event or even before officially booking the venue. Why couldn't they assess the logistics of, would this venue work? Especially if it's not a go-to. Like an auditorium, maybe you might want to ask, hey, does this theater type venue work for K-pop? You'd think they would ask that kind of question with a wedding chapel because that's not typical. So first of all, why weren't basic questions asked? Like, how big is the stage? Can they do big formations on it? How sturdy is this, etc.? Why couldn't they figure that out earlier than, oops, it's canceled during the actual event? My second question is, it may sound pretty stupid, but why couldn't they just perform off stage? Like in front of the stage or somewhere else on the ground level? Like, is that too simplistic? Couldn't they just rearrange the chairs, spread out, make room, and they could just perform elsewhere in the venue? If it's where weddings are, isn't there like maybe a ballroom type place connected to the place or nearby? If not in the venue, maybe nearby. They couldn't just relocate then and there? That struck me as odd too. The guys also were late to sound check, which was not helpful. The worst part was that the guys themselves were crying at points. Clearly this was supposed to be a big dream come true, big moment for them in the US. This big wow, we've made it international moment. And it was squandered by mismanagement. Then in other locations, issues seemed to be back and forth. Some venues it was like the Wedding Chapel Atlanta fiasco, where they were saying the venue has to cancel the performance, not suitable for this place, and we just found that out. But then they try to make up for it with merch and the fan meet and greet events and stuff like that. Other venues it was the opposite, where the performance went on, but then the meet and greet stuff had issues. So it was like you get one or the other in your city. The group also kept arriving late. Clearly transportation was an issue. Seemingly very basic stuff. After all this and the cancellation flat out of the entire New York event, E! Entertainment announced their plans to sue MCE for breach of contract. Now, I'm not going to get into too much of the legal weeds, but I do think it's a pretty slam dunk case as just an observer of this. If it's not breach of contract to not check venue safety in advance and book flights and hotels properly, which they also allege in the suit they didn't do, not sure what's a stronger breach of contract case than that. E! Entertainment also said in that statement announcing their lawsuit, the final cancellation of the New York show was a blindside. Like MCE totally just bailed. Like, oops, they're on to us, backed out, and so they had to cancel because their promotion just bailed. So apparently it was not their decision to cancel the New York show. Quote, MCE already made it so that our hands are tied, and we ultimately determined it would be difficult to move forward, unquote. I feel so bad for them, but I will say the silver lining, not only the lawsuit is kind of a silver lining, because now this company knows there's consequences for mistreatment, dropping the ball, but also the silver lining is with seeing the fan response. It's honestly been really touching to watch the L Ring, their fans, really just pitch in and try to make the most of this tour. It's not like they threw a violent protest or something against the company that I know of, but they responded by focusing back on E-Last and bringing them gifts and stuff, and as they heard of shows before theirs on the tour having issues, they tried to make up for them by just really joining up and trying to give them fan gifts and cheer them up and keep their spirits up, reassure them at fan signs it's not your fault, thanks for coming, we don't blame you for anything, we'll still have a good time. I mean, they really showed their passion to this group. It was really sweet to see. I could really go on more about this company, but that doesn't serve any purpose, and I do want to end on that note. Elsewhere in the concert world, there have been some issues with ticket sales lately, in part due to them just period getting more expensive, partly due to global inflation, partly due to scalper behavior, which is increased when prices go up due to inflation, so it's all kind of snowballing. There's also been an issue with dynamic pricing, especially for hype artists like August D, because dynamic pricing is, long story short, the prices go up if the demand goes up. So if we're talking about BTS affiliated soloists, yeah, the prices are going to go sky high and more. So dynamic pricing has been another snowball effect. There also are some hesitations fans have from a fandom celebration standpoint when their artists use dynamic pricing because they want to celebrate big record-breaking moments, like highest grossing show at that venue in its history. But those ticket-selling victories are not as exciting for fans to feel like they can genuinely celebrate when they know that came by basically exploiting the system. Like, your artist won highest grossing show, but that's because they upcharged every ticket through dynamic pricing. So does it still count as a big win to celebrate? So that's led to some internal fandom conflicts. Some people have tried their best to stand out apart from scalpers. IU actually, during her Golden Hour concert last fall, her company banned selling or reselling tickets right outside the venue, regardless of intent. So that is the downside, of course, of just legit fans trying to sell their tickets, not getting to right there, but also helps warn off scalpers, because if you did that outside the venue, you were threatened with a blacklist from her future shows. So that is one way to try to get rid of bad actors. There are also artists like Swings who decided to just make it super easy to access his show and made it free. Like, he's funding a show himself. Granted, it was because of low ticket sales, but it's also a good way in the future maybe to avoid scalpers. If you just keep it free, first come, first serve, then the show is sold out. For Swing's show, 800 people bought tickets. They could have had 5,000, but after he made the tickets free, the demand was over 6,000, and they can all go because the venue is able to be modified to hold up to 8,000. So that's a nice story to kind of make up a bit for the bad ones. Taiwan recently passed an amendment that would crack down on scalping. So now anyone who tries to sell a ticket above face value can be fined up to 50 times the original fee, or even spend 3 years or less in jail. This was an amendment added onto the Development of Cultural and Creative Industries Act, and the biggest catalyst was BLACKPINK. One BLACKPINK ticket sold for nearly 50 times the original price, $13,000 for one ticket, which really led them to think, that does it, we have an issue. Speaking of BLACKPINK tickets leading to policy changes, a lawyer in Malaysia, don't tick off a lawyer, is suing over his purchase. He claims he got 2 tickets for their tour, and then one was like a ghost ticket, so he got there and the seat didn't exist. His suit seeks the US equivalent of about $218K in damages. He decided to sue apparently after trying to just go through amicable negotiations with Live Nation and Go Live. Would love to have been a fly on the wall to hear those conversations, if they happened as he alleges. And one more headline in the world of disgruntled ticket buyers. Thai fans of Stray Kids have really protested their exorbitant ticket prices. They raised the issue back in October 2022 when tickets went on sale, but they had ire resurface in February for that concert event. A Thai media outlet, MRG Online, reported that the average K-pop concert ticket there is up almost 18% compared to what it was before the pandemic, and up 60% compared to 2013. So in a decade it rose 60%. In better live show news, though, Stray Kids fan meeting that is set for July 1st and 2nd will be available to live stream via Beyond Live. One more concert/live music world headline. Madison Square Garden owns the Hulu Theater, a venue in New York that many K-pop stars have played in. They are considering selling it for $1 billion deal. There's a whole aside I could go on, but other reporters have done a better job outlining the Penn Station debacle. Penn Station has notoriously not gone through with tons of different renovation plans over the years. Getting rid of the Hulu Theater could change it, though. For the sake of today's episode, I'm just going to talk about the Hulu deal. This would allow for the Penn Station makeover to feature this glass base that would then reflect more natural lighting into the train station basement. The deal would allow for the theater to just be torn down and replaced with a new entrance. The agreement with ASTM would allow for that company to call the shots basically for the next 50 years. So no backseats for 5 decades. They seem to have the upper hand with pitching, when MTA has also bid an idea that would be $7 billion. But MTA claims ASTM's idea would actually cost $2 billion, not the $1 billion they say they need for demolition and then new entrance construction and the glass base. TLDR about this issue, they want to give the place a makeover, but are sparring over whose idea to go with and the budget. And the casualty of the fight might be the Hulu Theater. Maybe Madison Square Garden is trying to line their coffers a bit right now. This is just my conspiratorial speculation. They could be trying to get extra money now to save up for pending litigation because of the facial recognition related lawsuits some people who have tried to attend MSG events have protested. If you want more on facial surveillance at music venues as a topic, maybe I'll cover it more in depth on Stay Tuned. But let's move on to topic 4 today. SM 3.0. A new YouTube upload and some SM Entertainment statements have confirmed the latest in SM Entertainment's big makeover. SM 3.0, that era has begun. And so they have announced pretty much what the rest of the year looks like, at least for NCT. First of all, they clarified that Lucas is no longer in the group. They didn't say he was out of Super M, but he's out of WayV/NCT. It's interesting that they said that because Lucas has been on an indefinite hiatus since August 2021. Yeah, it's been a long time coming. We were about to hit 2 years since he was on an indefinite hiatus. But in the past 2 years, time and time again, he's been seen in pictures with Lee Seung Gi Law, his boss. People thought maybe they were working on some sort of agreement to still work together. But I predict he's out of Super M too. I honestly feel like the fate of Super M is kind of up in the air because the initial pitch was a Super M comeback the first half of this year. While we're entering June as of recording time, it's either happening really soon or delayed or not happening. I also wonder if they just don't feel the need for it anymore. Plus, given their plans this year for EXO, WayV being on their fan meeting tour that never seems to end, Taeyeon doing solo stuff, it just feels like it's not the time for all of them to get back together. So I honestly feel like Super M is just not a priority with SM anymore. It was like a project group. I'm not saying it's fully over, but it may be a while before we hear from them. They might get a big renovation. So anyway, it was odd that they did not say Lucas left Super M2, but I do think he's not involved with SM Entertainment anymore, regardless of maybe a continued relationship with Lee Seung Gi Law. Other big news relates to the winding down of their ambitious, now abandoned project to have an infinitely expanding boy band. So now the last subunit will be NCT Tokyo, then they will just cap the number of members. So as their way to break into different markets, they decided instead of the different subunits strategy, they'll focus more on different groups. So a new boy group is coming, with Shotaro and Sunchan. So the newest NCT members are officially no longer in NCT and are joining the new group. I'm going to explain the details of all this and then give my take. So Sunchan and Shotaro, who is from Japan, will not be in NCT Tokyo. They are just in their own group after reportedly lots of discussion with the company. So not just the company unilaterally reaching this decision. The 4 confirmed members so far of the new group are those 2, Son Eun-sok and Hwan Soon-han. The rest of the members are future reality show winners and yet to be announced members of the program SM Rookies. They will also debut a new girl group in quarter 4 this year. So here's what the next few months looks like for NCT. June, Taeyeon solo, WayV continue their fan meeting tour. NCT Dream preps for their 3rd full album and has solo encore concerts. July, NCT 127 have a fan meeting to celebrate their 7-year anniversary. WayV stays on the fan meeting tour, and NCT Dream drops an album and starts the South American leg of their world tour. A group concert under the label NCT Nation is happening in August or September, plus a 4th NCT studio album. Also in September, NCT 127 will promote their 5th full album with the official release in October, which is also when WayV's 2nd studio album is set to release. After all that, NCT Dream will have a new mini album, NCT 127, a special album in December, and WayV will have a showcase tour in China. All this plus NCT Lab content that is TBA. So here's what caught my eye about these announcements. One is just from a marketing perspective, I find it very smart. Not only are they saving money, but not just adding infinite members to NCT's payroll and paying for talent scouts, auditions, globally, training years, all those years where they could build up debt before making it big. They save money by not having that project. And it also makes sense because it would help address recent criticisms of not treating individual members like individuals, like full people, treating them all fairly. So this would help show we're committed to this group of people, we're not too distracted. I also find it super smart marketing to announce the new band will have those two NCT members because those members were already gaining popularity. So they already have fans, people who find them to be bias worthy. So it's easier to jump into liking a new group with the element of familiarity. If you're like, I don't have time to stay in another group, learn all the names, learn all about them, become a huge fan, well, you already know what two of them are all about, and you already learned to like them. So it eases the psychological openness to new groups, to already have familiar faces, be a part of it. So you're already kind of a fan, even if you don't end up liking the music. So marketing-wise, smart decisions. Just personally, I must admit, I'm one of those people who is probably in the minority on this, but I really liked the Infinite Expansion plan. Like, I honestly was pretty sad to hear they're not going to do that. Because the thing is, I get so emotionally invested in groups I stan, and the thought of them breaking up, but with a group that's just never ending, I could never have to worry about this huge sense of loss. This sense that they're probably going to break up or their chemistry will be broken. I don't know. It's just different. With NCT knowing they would keep adding members, I felt just comforted by the thought they'll never break up. Members might come and go, choose to leave, but that door will always be open. I don't know, there was something eternal that I guess I was just comforted by. I mean, even the biggest groups One Direction, the Beatles, they didn't last technically that many years. It feels like they did, but not really. They come and go faster than it seems in the moment. So I like the thought of just infinitely being able to cherish a group that never breaks up. It's harder and less common than you think for a boy band. I also just like the thought of constantly being introduced to more new players, seeing someday a very fun show with like a stadium worth of people, but they're all the performers, the members. All the meme material was there, all the jokes about the group size. Those are all gone now. I don't know. It was an interesting idea that I was kind of on board with. I wanted to see where it went. That being said, I do agree that for the members' sake, I'm sure they prefer staying among themselves. Changing things up not with new members, but new configurations, like Dojaejun. I really hope they keep mixing it up among themselves. So kind of disappointing, especially with Sunchan and Shotaro, but understood. So it shouldn't have been surprising in hindsight. And I'm super psyched because, whoa, we and Citizens this year will feast on new content. Speaking of SM, let's talk about global news and partnerships. Another aspect that caught my eye about the latest SM announcement was what it omitted. Previously, they announced the upcoming subunits would be NCT Tokyo and NCT Saudi Arabia, so that is apparently scrapped. This is very interesting to me because I've been closely watching Saudi Arabia's PR blitz trying to court the K-pop world. We covered this on some past episodes like K-Pod Save the World, probably will again in the future, but long story short, Saudi Arabia is on this mission to diversify their revenue more, focus more on entertainment, plus it would help their global stage image, their worldwide image they project if they have allies in entertainment. So they're really getting into tourism and have signed deals with SM Entertainment. KCON made its big successful Saudi Arabia debut. Everglow performed there at their Superdome as part of a festival. That was a first. Soo-man Lee gave a speech there about his eco-initiatives. Plus, entertainment giant Kaiko has held talks with their tourism agency on potential partnerships and just building infrastructure together. Saudi Arabia has invested over $960 million in Kaiko. Actually, in the past, over 3 trillion won have been invested by these big game developers, NCSoft and Nexon, in Saudi Arabia. Notable timing that Kaiko prepared their shareholder offer in early March, where they were trying to acquire up to 35% of the available shares in SM. This was around the same time Kaiko raised $966 million from wealth funds, these government-run investment funds from Saudi Arabia and Singapore. Just as Kaiko prepared to literally buy in to SM, they also raised a bunch of money from Saudi Arabia. So the triangle of influence, Kaiko, SM, Saudi Arabia Tourism Agency, it is a clear triangle. A new announcement is that Super Junior are now ambassadors for the Saudi Arabia Tourism Authority, following apparently an invite to get the role. In more global news, let's talk a bit more about what we started talking about in a previous episode about censorship. We talked about the concert restrictions on the rapper Namely on a previous episode for his past music that has kind of made fun of mainland China's policies. Well, a comedy troupe recently got into more trouble with the government. They made a joke about basically what dogs do, likening it to how the military behaves in China, which was a comment made that got pretty good reception. It got laughs, but one person complained online, prompting an investigation and them declaring they were guilty of, quote, humiliating the People's Army, unquote. The man who made the jokes was suspended from Weibo despite his apology, and even the company who hired the troupe got punished, fined over the equivalent of $2 million USD for that joke. Then there's Uncle Roger, as his persona is called, a YouTube comedian, a social media sensation, Nigel Un. He's Malaysian, but based in London. He's won some awards for his work. He was on Comedy Central. Pretty prolific. He teased a new video by joking that it would surely get him censored in China, and it did. Then he re-uploaded it to Twitter, jokingly being like, I wonder why it was censored on other platforms. Basically, it was his routine where he talks about being careful what he says because they're watching his every move, they're listening to his conversations, and he kind of just said things along the lines of, I'm supposed to say that, when he would compliment mainland China. Like, oh, great, great, great country, so I'm forced to say, kind of a thing. So yes, they responded to a joke about censorship with censorship. Part of the reason probably is economic. He called out a brand by name, Huawei, which is actually banned from some countries. Like, they can't install infrastructure in certain countries due to those countries saying it does not meet their security expectations. So he's harming international deal-making, basically, I guess they're arguing. So he's run into censorship issues, and I will keep you posted because these instances are happening more than they used to. Like I said last time about censorship, they have started implementing laws again that were always there but kind of dormant. But now they're revisiting long-ignored legislation to enforce more than they used to. One more bit of just international entertainment world news that I found interesting. The Recording Industry Association of America confirmed that in 2022, Latin music revenue surpassed $1 billion in the USA for the first time. Topic number 6, the Lee Seung Gi Act. This will largely affect the K-pop world. In previous episodes, we talked about Lee Seung Gi missing 20 years of payments because Hook Entertainment was the opposite of transparent with him. So this law was introduced to prevent that from happening to other artists. And it sounded, honestly, like it would sail smoothly through the legislature, no real opposition, like, sure, let's do this, because the law basically just said we have to have transparency. So at least once a year, artists have to be notified of their earnings. You have to disclose to them. Income settlement, disclosure details, you need to have that conversation with your clients at least once a year. The dispute started when an amendment was going to be added. A separate provision was introduced that the companies do not like. So that complicated its chances of passing, because the provision focuses on artists' rights in other ways. It will limit the amount of work certain artists can do, amount of hours per week. The new maximum would be working, if you're over 15, 35 hours a week. 30 hours a week at most if you're 12 to 15 years old, and only 25 hours a week at most if you're under 12. This revision passed in April by the National Assembly Culture, Sports, and Tourism Committee. This revision was also included with ideas about limiting restrictions on just life for young performers. The amount of educational disruption due to their schedules, the amount they're allowed to miss out on events, and the amount of appearance scrutiny they have to go under. That type of stuff, they would be protected from being exploited. And the major companies sound very up in arms about this. The opposition seems to come the most not from individuals, but the actual big companies. 5 main ones have actually teamed up in opposition. The Korean Entertainment Producer Association, Recording Industry Association, Federation of Management, Music Contents Association, and Music Label Industry Association. The arguments they've proposed have been quite interesting to me. My bias in this issue is I frankly think it's a good idea to pass a law that protects artists and limits their work hours a bit, especially in the US where we're kind of going backwards with that. Anyway, that's a separate conversation. Just there are issues with that. So addressing it in any way I support, and I just frankly find the counter arguments to be lacking in some ways. First of all, some say it's too broad, because what constitutes one of the legally allowed working hours? Is driving to an activity working hours? Is hair and makeup time working hours? They also claim this will actually limit the ability of South Korea to have this competitive edge on the global music scene. So if their artists work less hours, they will have less ability to present next-level artists to the world. However, I would argue you might actually have better performing artists if they're not bone-tired, but I digress. The opposition has actually gone so far as to say, quote, "It is self-evident that the second BoA will no longer be seen," unquote. Like, where can we find the next BoA if you limit the hours these people can work? Not sure I agree it will hurt that prospect as directly as they seem to want to correlate it. They also have interestingly basically said, well, you don't restrict other activities young people do. Why would you restrict this? Like, if you want to play basketball all day, why would you say, no, you can only play basketball 10 hours a day? I don't know. Like, why can't you just let kids follow their dreams limitlessly? Like, other kids can study, but if they want to blossom as pop artists, they can't do so under this restriction. Don't you want them to live out their dream? I don't know. It's very, very extra in their arguments. They're very mad about this. Now the problem is the entanglement, because now that these provisions have been officially added, that means if they want to do good PR that comes from showing they support the new pay transparency, that means they also now have to vote in favor of all the other stuff in the legislation. I will keep you posted on what happens with it, but it has evolved into something pretty big and monumental. Topic number 7, some 17 updates. They are having shows in Seoul in July. Then later this year, they will be touring Japan. And next year, they will start military enlistments. So it sounds like next year, 0 group-wide comebacks. And I was really hoping there would be some US shows to close out the year, but it sounds like the rest of the year's tours, they're focused on Asia. However, we do always have other content from them besides concerts. So besides the recent Japanese fan meeting, which drew a crowd over 4 days of 180,000 people, 4 different shows, each one sold out, they also have provided us with so much content to watch. There's a new show called Bro and Marble. Apparently there's a game like Monopoly in South Korea called Bro and Marble. So a life-size version of sorts of Monopoly is going to happen. And Joshua and Hoshi are part of the cast. It sounds like a cool mix of a game show and a travel show because they'll travel to the landmarks they acquire in Monopoly World. Besides that, they released a special April shower performance video, plus Dino has a new danceology featuring Mingyu, Seungkwan has a new OST, Still You. They have plenty of treats in store, plus the FML album keeps breaking exciting records. It became their first to spend 3 weeks in the Billboard 200 chart top 40, and the first to spend 2 weeks in that top 15. It's also certified triple platinum in Japan. 17 in Japan this year is it. 17 also announced their first ever compilation. A Japanese compilation, Best of 17, is coming, August 23rd. Number 8, BTS updates. An interesting cryptic entry on a bookstore site listed a famous celebrity memoir coming in July. So a bunch of Swifties, a bunch of Taylor Swift superfans, pre-ordered, assuming it was her memoir. It's actually very impressive and clever. They thought it had to be her because her lucky number is 13. The book page count was listed as 544. 5 plus 4 plus 4 is 13. Plus, she's releasing a re-release just a couple days apart from the set release date, July 9th. So all of a sudden, a ton of pre-orders came in for a book about a mystery famous person for July 9th, a 544-page book. Turns out it was BTS. The secret artist was BTS, so now a bunch of Swifties are about to turn into ARMY after they read said book. Yeah, they have a book coming out soon before my birthday. Love that. Actually, one of the English translators is autistic, like me, which was really cool to see, because I connected with their music, and I'm sure a lot of people on the spectrum have as well. We have an interesting, close relationship with the music that it touches us very deeply, even more than neurotypical people. So anyway, I hope this leads to an outpouring of support for us neurodivergent ARMY. It reminds us that we can be authors, successful translators. It's inspiring to watch. The book is called Beyond the Story, 10-Year Record of BTS. It's kind of an oral history format, worked on with a journalist, Kang Myun-sok. I will keep you posted, and of course we'll cover it on the show. I have a running series called BT Study Guides, talking about their literary inspiration. We'll of course have to include this. While I'm talking about them, there is a new merch item coming next month. The Permission to Dance-esque spring sandals. They're out this July, and it's an official partnership with Hybe and Formna, Formna. At btssoloDocumentaries.com, you can find info on Suga and J-Hope's solo docs coming to theaters mid-June. A Hybe exhibition will be up this summer through August 27th that features portraits of 37 different Hybe artists. Plus, a special event, mid-June, will take place in Seoul, and apparently the itinerary includes some online components, so stay tuned, you'll get to participate. Parts of Seoul will be lit up purple through June as well, because the Seoul Metro government is officially hosting, they're sponsoring this year's Festa. The BTS celebration this year, it's gonna be big, and of course we'll have some BTS-specific 17 Carat K-Pop content as well. Meanwhile, Hybe has been making some big moves. The A&R, they've had big hit labels since 2017, left, and is now going to head up A&R at Columbia Records. New Hybe acquisition Big Machine set up a new sub-label. Hard 8 Working Group now is home to Mark Twain, plus All Time Low, and others. So in a roundabout way, Mark Twain is affiliated with the company of BTS members. And Hybe has sold 20% of Adore. The Adore sublabel, no longer 100% owned by Hybe. 20% was sold to, quote, core management. They didn't specify, but everyone assumes that means Min Hee-jin, the creator of New Jeans, now owns 20%. Someday she may own the whole thing, we'll see. Topic number 9, TV, movie, and other programming updates. As of recording time, it's still unclear what's really official, but the rumor is the 16th of June will be the release date of Persona Sully. Sully's special, which she was mid-filming before her death, it's unfinished but might still be released by Netflix. Her friend IU starred in season 1, and now Sully's season might be released. It sounds like it's in talks to be released. Not sure what that really means. And I don't want to give an opinion. Obviously, it would be fascinating. I think Sully was such a beautiful, interesting mind. But I don't know how her friends and family and IU, how they feel about that. So I don't want to say this is a good idea or not without knowing if it would cause them pain or comfort. Could be either. But that may be out there soon. The speculation started when fans in Brazil noticed that Netflix showed it coming soon with the June 16 release date. And Netflix's statement in response made it sound like that was kind of a fluke, but they were still in talks. Not sure what's going on there. Meanwhile, Disney Plus continues to be investing in K-dramas, and a new one is coming starring Rain called Red Swan. And it's coming later this year, but date TBA. The director who brought you A Korean Odyssey is on board, and it was written by the person behind Only Love, Three Sisters, and more. This sounds like quite a dramatic story. This woman grows up poor, but then she becomes a world-renowned golfer. Her life takes a turn for the better. She gets into a relationship for 10 plus years, but she has discomfort despite their relationship longevity with his affairs. She's caught in the middle of a violent incident, and so a bodyguard jumps in and saves her. So she develops feelings for this bodyguard, now feels more ready to part from her longtime husband. That's the plot. I'll keep you posted about a release date, but that's what we know. Very intriguing. If you want lighter fare to watch, for Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the Japanese dub, Lisa will be doing an OST, the Japanese artist Lisa. The song's out June 14th, then the movie June 16th, the Japanese version. It's really cute how she's talked about this song and how she likes Gwen for being a character, quote, who is cute yet powerful, unquote. She likes her multitudes. And Lisa's own drawings helped inspire the movie animator's role as a designer for the actual single cover art. So Lisa was kind of hands-on with the root of the inspiration. More TV-type updates. There's a new YouTube show from Teen Top members Neil and Ricky called We Are Alive, which I just find very funny. Like, yep, we're still here, not teenagers, but we are alive. In ITZY, they were back on Good Day New York while they were in town for the Head in the Clouds Fest, the first in New York, and they talked and performed Cheshire on that show. Topic number 10. Everything else. Yes, that counts as a category. So much miscellaneous, rapid-fire news to get to close out the episode, so get ready. I'm going super fast because there is just so much to say. New Jeans are on Time Magazine's list for 2023 of Next Generation Leaders. They're also, with Les Seraphim, on the list of Forbes' 30 Under 30 Asia list. New lightstick reveals from Tempest, Lee Chaeyeon, Yena. Sunmi now reps Golden Goose, and Jeno from NCT reps Ferragamo. Cha Eun-woo is an ambassador for 2023 24 Years Visit Korea project. Winner member Yoon is enlisting June 20th. Henry's episode in the Grammys Press Play online series is out now. Ray is back from hiatus with IVE. Lime from Hello Venus is pregnant. Some fandom name announcements. Yerin announced her solo fandom name. Worrying translates to We Are, also stands for basically roughly we will be together forever is how she put it. And Zikers announced their fandom name, The Roadie, with a capital Y. The Y being like the coordinates. Fans will provide the Zikers, ex-hikers, to make their road appear. The X marks the spot, and the fandom will be the road to lead them there. The latest to catch COVID, Miju, and Wendy from Red Velvet. New to Instagram, the aespa member Solo, and members of TO1. Also launching new solo socials, I.M, who also has a new website, Zoomy, new Twitter and YouTube, Super Junior D&E, new Twitter, and Han Sun-woo from Victon. Boy Band Infinite got the best birthday present ever from their CEO, Lee Jun-yup, who transferred the trademark to them. They get to keep the rights to the group name. It was an unconditional birthday gift to group leader Kim Sung-kyu. Their fandom name In Spirit also falls under the trademark they now own. That's very cool. More companies should do that. It is the least they can do. Hyuk from VIX just signed with Companion Company. Victon's Byung-chan signed with New Way Company. Moon Jonggup signed with MA Entertainment. And Lim Na-yeon, formerly from Pristine, IOI, has left Sublime Artists Agency. Jimin broke Jungkook's record to be the fastest K-pop male soloist to reach 1 billion Spotify streams. Suga's album D-Day is now certified gold in Japan. ENHYPEN are now triple million sellers for Dark Blood, which sold 1.1 million copies on just day one. G-Idol are now million sellers for I Feel. aespa are now double million sellers for My World. For the first time, Stray Kids have a video that surpassed 400 million views, God's Menu. And Taeyeon's Love Theory surpassed 50k Shazams. Very exciting. Underrated gem. Love to see it. Before I let you go, your action item of the day. My solidarity and thoughts are with the workers who are striking, the writers who are striking. Massive historic strike we haven't seen in years. The last one of this magnitude, of a comparable one anyway, lasted 100 days. So fingers crossed it doesn't take as long this time, but we'll see. My thoughts are with them. Without writers, we wouldn't have any show or movie. Paying them what they're owed is just so common sense, it's ridiculous to me. So what you can do to support is show your support via social media posts you share from WGA. You can also donate to an entertainment community fund. Donations can go to @ALifeInTheArts on Instagram. More info as well from WGA's socials. So donating, uplifting, spreading their message, and make sure to not cross a picket line on accident, metaphorically. If you see calls for fan casting or pitch contests, fan casting or pitch contests, red flags. That means they're looking for scabs, they're looking for you to take an offer to step in and do the work they refuse to just pay their real workers for. So don't cross that line. Thank you for sticking with me today amid so many headlines, and I'll talk to you all again very soon. Bye, everybody!